For the fourth time in franchise history, the Seahawks are Super Bowl bound. How did they get it done against the Los Angeles Rams in a thriller that lived up to all the hype? I'm going to be breaking it down here on our post-game edition, NFC Championship Game style, Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, going live here from Lumen Field. The Seattle Seahawks are Super Bowl bound, going to be diving into how Sam Darnold and company got it done on the biggest stage, NFC Championship Game style, to beat their rivals, the Los Angeles Rams. All the key winners as far as game balls. We've got 3 up, 3 down, which players starred, which ones didn't so much. So really excited to dive into this historic game in Seahawks history, coming in year number 50 for the franchise. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in on this late night show, whether you are in nearby Spokane, Washington, or listening down in Dallas, Texas. Much appreciated for your support of the podcast, and thank you for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks are heading to the Super Bowl for the fourth time in franchise history. All of those happening in 2005 or later. We can add 2025 to that list with a 31-27 victory over the Los Angeles Rams. And this game, it ended up playing a little differently than I thought it was going to. A lot closer to the Week 16 matchup than the Week 11 matchup that the Seahawks lost at SoFi Stadium. There was more offense, more points, both quarterbacks slinging the rock. Matt Stafford, 374 passing yards. Sam Darnold, 346 passing yards. But really the big number here, no turnovers for the Seahawks. And number 14, the big reason for that, for all the critics that there still were going into this game for Sam Darnold, I wasn't subscribing to that at this point because we'd already seen him beat the Los Angeles Rams in Week 16, and that was a comeback victory with a lot of points late. Sam Darnold had the game-winning touchdown, game-winning 2-point conversion. I felt like that game kind of got rid of the biggest demon, so to speak, already, but it wasn't a playoff game. Yes, it was a high-stakes regular season game, but there were still a lot of critics. The narrative out there, Sam Darnold cannot win the big games. And that even continued after beating the 49ers last week. The critics saying, well, San Francisco's got a bunch of injuries, no Nick Bosa, no Fred Warner. We need to see Sam Darnold win a playoff game against a full-strength, healthy football team. Well, now those critics can truly eat crow. I thought this was Sam Darnold in terms of the magnitude of this game and what he did so well and so effectively. I thought this was the best game that he has had in his career. And just to put some perspective on how well Sam Darnold played, Russell Wilson and Matt Hasselbeck had some fantastic playoff games under center for the Seahawks in their 27 combined postseason games wearing a Seattle uniform. None of those 27 games had the quarterback throwing for 330-plus yards, 3 or more touchdowns, and having no interceptions. Sam Darnold became the first quarterback in Seahawks history to do that in a playoff game tonight, throwing for 346 yards. He had 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jake Bobo, who didn't have a touchdown all season, caught one after a major special teams gaffe by the Rams. And then Cooper Kupp getting revenge against his former team. What ended up being the game-winning touchdown, 7 different receivers catching passes from Sam Darnold. And even though he took 3 sacks and he completed under 70% of his passes, he was still at 69%. I thought this was as efficient of a game as we've seen from him. Clint Kubiak was in his bag all night long, did a really good job of mixing in the deep shot plays, getting some yard after the catch opportunities for his running backs, for his receivers as well. They attacked the middle of the field. It was a balanced, complementary passing attack, and I thought Sam Darnold was absolutely masterful running it. So kudos to Darnold. I'll talk more about his performance as we get deeper into the show. But to me, that was the biggest storyline in this game because Seattle's defense did not play well. Second straight game against the Rams where Matt Stafford threw for over 370 yards. Puka Nacua went for 165. on 9 catches, not quite as prolific as he had with that 225-yard performance in week 16, but still came up with a bunch of big catches, and the Seahawks really had no answers. It felt like the explosives, the dynamite was going off even more in this game. The secondary was getting beat. They were giving up major separation throughout the course of the game. And the pass rush, even though they did finally get a sack on Matthew Stafford, the pass rush was still non-existent for large chunks of this game. You add in the fact the Rams rushed for over 5 yards per carry. You put all those numbers together going into this game, if I would have been told that the Rams ran the football that well and that Matthew Stafford had over 370 passing yards, he had no interceptions, and Puka Nacua went off the way he did, I would have been finding it hard to believe that the Seahawks won this game. But again, it boils down to Sam Darnold. Every time the ball was in his court tonight, he responded magnificently. And I think the 2 biggest throws he made this entire game, you can look at the 51-yarder to Rashid Shaheed, 3rd play of the game, airing it out. Longest pass he's had to Shaheed. You can look at the 42-yard dime on a skinny post route that he threw to Jackson Smith and Jigba at the end of the first half. He threw a touchdown a couple plays later to Smith and Jigba, who had 115 receiving yards in the first half. That was the most ever by a Seahawk in a half in a playoff game. You can look at those downfield throws. They were big chunk plays. They were pivotal to those scoring drives. But I felt like the 2 second down throws and a 3rd down throw that he made on the last drive of this game, they were eating clock. It was 4-minute offense. That's what we really saw Sam Darnold playing at his very best and coming through in situations where a lot of teams probably would have just tried to run the clock out, running the football. And the Rams were loading up the box. Clint Kubiak put the faith in his quarterback to deliver on pass plays there, risking incompletions or turnovers. And they were able to move the chains 3 different times doing that. So I just felt like from start to finish that Sam Darnold was in complete command. He was playing with incredible confidence. He was separating, getting the ball out to all of his different receivers, spreading the wealth, did a good job moving in and out of the pocket. He didn't look like a guy that missed good chunks of the practice week, still recovering from oblique injury. So that was a big storyline. And the other one here, I mentioned this at the beginning, the thing that stands out here, the Seahawks had no turnovers. The Rams, they had 1, and it was a pivotal one on special teams early in the 3rd quarter. Xavier Smith, that poor guy. Look, this is one of those situations where who knows what the Rams are going to do, but when guys botch multiple punts in a game like this and they reserve receivers, it would be a shock to me if the Rams have a pink slip out there, because we saw that with Brandon Bostic when he missed the onside kick with the Packers in that game many years ago in the NFC title game against Seattle. If you're a role player and you make those kind of mistakes in a game of this magnitude, he had 2 muffed punts. The first one, he was fortunate that Derek Young had ran past him and he was able to get the ball in front of him. Second time Derek Young was in front of him, Young recovers it, and then Jake Bobo, literally the next play, gets inside leverage on the half coverage safety. Sam Darnold hits him right on the hands for his first touchdown of the season. So they turned that turnover into points instantly. That was a huge mistake in this game for the Rams, and Seattle certainly had plenty of their own mistakes along the way, but they finally got a defensive stop with Devin Witherspoon getting 2 pass breakups on the deciding drive where the Rams had it down to the 6-yard line and they couldn't get any points. Seattle then ate a bunch of clock, forced the Rams to use their timeouts, and Darnold made some clutch throws during that time, and that ended up being the difference here. But it was an offensive game, a lot of yards. Seahawks defense certainly far from the best effort we've seen from them this year. The Rams seem to be their kryptonite in a lot of ways, but Seattle got just enough stops, and the offense played really well, particularly the passing game, slinging the ball all over the field. And because of that, the Seahawks, they're going to Santa Clara in 2 weeks, and they get to battle the New England Patriots, a chance for revenge. And I know that there's really none of the players from those teams that played way back in February 2015, but still the historical aspect here with how that game ended. Seahawks fans would love nothing more than to get some revenge there and beat the Patriots in Super Bowl 60. So we'll have time to dive into that matchup here over the next couple of weeks, with it being 2 weeks until the game. But for now, going to focus in on this historic win for the Seahawks. Coming up next, it's game ball time. Which players stood out? Offense, defense, special teams. Going to get to that up next here on our post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. This episode is brought your way by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least two players' stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including Texas, California, and Georgia. Prize Picks has added an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, whether it's fantasy scores, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups. After you play your first $5 lineup, that's the code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your knowledge in the sports sector and the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets change the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available in US for download on the Robinhood app to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered future commissions merchant and swap firm. Welcome back to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith, going live from Lumen Field. A historic night for the Seattle Seahawks, 31-27 victory over the Los Angeles Rams, punching a ticket to the Super Bowl for the fourth time in franchise history and the first time in 11 years. Those two back-to-back Super Bowls, obviously the blowout win over the Broncos, and then the not-so-remembered loss to the New England Patriots, or it's remembered, but for the wrong reasons. The Seahawks are going to have a chance to rectify that because they get to play the Patriots now in Super Bowl 60. And so an exciting win for the Seahawks, a historic one, some big-time performances. Going to get to the game balls here in a second, but make sure to check out our new Everydayer Club and get Locked On Seahawks with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnSeahawks.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. As we do each and every week, whether it's preseason or week one, or in this case, the NFC Championship game, it's time to dish out our game balls. And there were several players that were worthy of consideration on offense, and I mentioned this earlier, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 115 receiving yards in the first half. That's the most receiving yards in a half in a playoff game for a Seahawks player. So from that perspective, it would have been easy to give him the game ball. He did score a touchdown as well, but we've got to give it to the guy that wasn't just a facilitator today. He wasn't just a game manager. And that being Sam Darnold. As I mentioned in the first segment, I thought when you consider the magnitude of this game, his stats, and just everything that transpired on the field today, especially with him not being 100% healthy right now, I thought this was the best game that we have seen from Sam Darnold. Roughly a 70% completion rate, 346 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. First quarterback in Seahawks playoff history to have a stat line like that. So it was a fantastic, historic performance by Sam Darnold. But I think it was just the fact, and I mentioned the word complementary earlier. A lot of times you hear that with complementary football, it's the run game working with the passing game. And on defense, your pass rush marrying with the coverage and your run defense. In this case, though, the complementary football, I think, was in the way that the Seahawks executed their passing game. They came out early and they were taking some shots downfield, and Darnold was hitting on him. You had the 51-yarder, third play of the game to Rashid Shaheed, who had a couple steps there. That one might have been slightly underthrown there, and if the ball had a little more air under it, we might be talking about a even longer play that goes to the end zone for a touchdown. But Seattle still got a TD a couple plays later with Ken Walker III pinballing his way into the end zone. There was a 42-yard throw down the seam on a skinny post to Jackson Smith-Njigba that set up a touchdown to Jackson Smith-Njigba at the end of the first half. A few other shot plays mixed in there as well. And then throughout the game, you saw Sam Darnold attacking the middle of the field. There were some big throws on the hash marks as well. He was spreading the football all over the field. And then from a yak perspective, the playmakers for the Seahawks, we got to see Ken Walker do this a few times. He had a 15-yard play and a screen. The last play of the game, or last drive of the game, Walker caught a little dump off near the end zone. They were in the shadow of their goalposts. He turned it into a 15-yard gain. Cooper Kupp's 13-yard touchdown, he bulldozed through multiple defenders of the goal line and picked up yards after the catch. So we had to see Seattle have a full complement of what they could do throwing the football. The running game was not efficient in terms of yards per attempt, but Ken Walker III ran hard, and it continued to be effective enough that the Rams had to respect it. The Seahawks were able to get some big plays off of play action as a result. And Sam Darnold was the one that was facilitating all of that. He was really accurate today. Maybe a couple throws you could look at and nitpick that he missed on, but he was very accurate at all three levels. He was making sound decisions, didn't have any close calls for interceptions. There were no turnovers, took a few sacks, but a couple of them were ones there was no way around it, just immediate pressure and went down, didn't turn over the football. I just thought this was as clean and as prolific of a game as what he has played. So easily my pick there for offensive player of the game. As for the defensive side of the football, it was much more uneven on that side with 27 points given up, all the yardage the Rams had, both passing and running the football. The pass rush was not there for a big chunk of the game. They gave up a lot of downfield throws. To me, there was one constant, and I think there were two players that the Seahawks won this game as a large result from. Sam Darnold, as I mentioned, and the other one is rookie Nick Emmanwori, who he was the one defender that it felt like the entire game that he brought it. He had 3 pass breakups, and 2 of them came, I think, maybe the most important defensive drive in this entire game. Right before Seattle retook the lead at 17-13, there were 2 pass breakups by Emmanwori on consecutive plays that forced a 3-and-out, and then the Seahawks got the ball back. Those were crucial plays. Gave Sam Darnold the chance to hit on that 42-yarder to Smith-Njigba, and then eventually the touchdown to JSN while he had Jared Verse smashing him in the pocket. None of that would have happened if the Rams were able to get a first down or 2 there, but Emmanwori came up with 2 really big pass breakups there. He was aggressive getting to the football. He added a 3rd pass breakup in the game as well. And he was one of the few guys that felt like when the Rams were running the football the way they were, he was cleaning guys up and he was flying all over the field in pursuit. I just thought number 3, everything that seemed to be good happening on the field, he was somewhere around the football and he was making plays consistently. And he was targeted 10 times and he gave up 6 catches for 10 yards. I mean, he was not giving up yardage when the Rams were targeting him, unlike the corners and the other safeties for the Seahawks in this game. Didn't have the impact blitzing. They didn't really use him much in that capacity, but he was making his tackles. He wasn't leaving plays in the field. He got his hands on the football 3 times to lead the team. Number 3 just continues to play well beyond his years in the playoff limelight. He has not been scared of the moment, and he continues to play at a very high level. So Emmanwori, to me, he was the most consistent. He was the most productive today for the Seahawks in a day where a lot of guys were very up and down, and there were a lot of big plays given up. He wasn't really a culprit for any of that, and I felt like he had the most complete game on that side of the football. And on special teams, this is a guy that, if the Rams wouldn't have had a second muffed punt, Derek Young, we could have easily looked back at the first missed opportunity because Xavier Smith botched a punt in the second quarter and Derek Young had ran past him. Mike McDonald explained it as it looked like he was going down to prepare to try to down the kick. And he hinted that he should have been in front of the returner. Well, he was in front of Smith the second time around, and when the receiver did not field the return cleanly, he was there to pounce on the loose ball for a recovery, and that set up Jake Bobo's touchdown on the next play. Young was also in on 3 tackles on kick coverage, which really this was a game you could see again. The Seahawks have been a top 3 special teams unit all year long in terms of EPA, basically week 1 until now. The Rams have been near the bottom of the league. They fired their coordinator after losing to the Seahawks in week 16. You can see the difference between these two teams. Special teams really was magnified in this contest, a 1-score game, not just that botched kick, but also looking at the kick and punt return numbers, the Rams were not able to muster much, and the guys for the Seahawks in coverage were getting downfield. They weren't missing tackles. They were making big plays. Jason Myers converted all of the extra points and field goals. The Rams had good kicking, but away from that, this was a pretty lopsided game in Seattle's favor in terms of effectiveness on special teams. And that one turnover that was massive in this football game. So Tariq Young, by merit of being the one that recovered that and also having a couple of tackles as well in kick coverage, he gets the special teams ball, with honorable mention going to Jason Myers and Michael Dixon, who both played really, really well today and did their jobs effectively. Coming up next, going to continue our post-game show for the NFC Championship game. We've got 3 up, 3 down. Which other players impressed, and who are some players that are going to want to bounce back in the final game of the season, the Super Bowl coming up in Santa Clara? I'm going to dish out 3 up, 3 down coming your way here on our post-game edition, Locked On Seahawks. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen at other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I need to hire someone for this show, for example, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedInNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedInNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Pint a Pie, the Space Needle, is the perfect pregame or pre-funk spot before tonight's game or concert. After 4 p.m., the Space Needle's Pint a Pie gives you the whole package: an entree, a savory sweet tip-top pie, or a pint of beer, wine, and a non-alcoholic drink, all for just $35 per person. Minimum purchase of 2 required. Pint a Pie is your launch pad to game night. Gear up for a cracking home game at Climate Pledge at the Space Needle, Seattle's most iconic destination, not just for the views, but the evening fun. Rather than trying to cram into a crowded sports bar right before, why not enjoy a little space and a great view while pre-gaming with your favorite cocktail? Create a pre-game story as iconic as the Space Needle itself. Look out over the city, look down at Climate Pledge Arena before you go inside. Toast the home team, then roll into Climate Pledge with the best pregame story in the Emerald City. Whether it's date night, friend night, or you're just here for the deal of it all, come take your place on the horizon with Pint a Pie. Only $35 a person. Limited time offer, 21 and up, ID required. Get tickets at spaceneedle.com. Minimum 2 required. Welcome back to the post-game edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith, going live from Lumen Field here a few hours after the Seahawks took care of business in the NFC Championship game with a 31-27 win over the Los Angeles Rams to advance to Super Bowl 60. A special thanks to all the 12s who are tuning in. And thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. Seahawks going to the Super Bowl for the 4th time in franchise history. First time in 11 years. They'll be facing the New England Patriots by virtue of a 31-27 win over the Rams. And there was so much hype going into this grudge match between two of the best teams in the NFL. And the Seahawks and Rams lived up to that hype. This was a fantastic football game, albeit one that had some big mistakes in it. But the Seahawks ended up being the one that capitalized the most on the mistakes made by the other team. And for that reason, they survive with a 4-point win, and they get to continue their season in Santa Clara in Super Bowl 60. Let's get to our 3 up, 3 down weekly stock watch. The players who impressed the most that weren't game ball winners, the other ones who shined, and some players who struggled and are going to be looking to pick things up in the Super Bowl. And I'm going to start on the positives here with who's hot. And I want to mention a couple of receivers. And first and foremost, Cooper Kupp. And Mike McDonald talked about this after the game, that there kind of had been some whispers in the locker room and in the coach's office before this game. Like, how cool would it be if Cooper Kupp scored a touchdown in the NFC Championship game against his former team? And sure enough, he did just that. And in a critical moment, went up 31-20 at that point. And it was a 13-yard touchdown catch. And Kupp had 2 catches for 25 yards on that drive. He also had a 7-yard third down catch on 3rd and 7, where he just got the nose of the football past the marker to move the chains on Seattle's final offensive drive. So again, he continues to come up big in high leverage situations. He's not racking up the receptions and receiving yards that he did during his heyday with the Rams, but he's making big catches when the Seahawks need him to. He got after it in the run game. Again, had a couple really nice blocks, lead blocking for Ken Walker III. On a couple screen plays on the outside, he was able to get his hands on defenders and make key blocks. He continues to be as good as any receiver in the league in that capacity. And so kudos to him for not being a high volume guy anymore, but when he gets his chances, he delivers, and he did so tonight with that game-winning touchdown catch and a couple other really nice grabs there in the final 2 quarters. And speaking of coming up clutch, Jake Bobo, talk about somebody that had been an afterthought for a good chunk of the season. He had an injury, missed several games, then he was a healthy scratch for a few games, and went into the playoffs with just 2 catches. But he had a big one against the 49ers last week, and then today gets his first touchdown of the season, coming right off that special teams miscue by Xavier Smith, the botched punt. And Seattle immediately capitalizes with Bobo getting inside leverage on the half assignment defender in the cover 2 look, beats him inside. Darnold hits him right on the hands for the touchdown. Bobo's just one of those guys, when he gets his chances to make plays, he gets the job done. He's not going to be a high volume player. He's going to have games he doesn't play very much on offense at all. But when he gets his chances, he just capitalizes on them. When they need him to do something on special teams, he'll step up and do whatever role the Seahawks need him to do. But on offense in particular, we've started to see Clint Kubiak lean on him a little bit more here as of late. And he gives them some size element that they don't have with Torrey Horton being out for the rest of the season. He's got that size component, not near the athlete, obviously, that Torrey Horton is, but he is a really savvy route runner. He is a good blocker in the run game. And he does a great job of winning in contested catch situations, which when you're a 4.99, 40-yard dash guy, you have to be able to do that. So he does what he has to do to be successful at this level with his skill set. And Sam Darnold has the utmost trust in him. He showed it there, getting the ball to him for that touchdown in that key situation to immediately capitalize on that turnover. As for the defensive side of the football, my big winner here, DeMarcus Lawrence, mainly by virtue of the fact that, oh, by the way, the last 3 times the Seahawks had played against Matthew Stafford, they didn't get a single sack on him. DeMarcus Lawrence finally snapped that today with a sack, and he also had a forced fumble in that play. The Rams did recover, unfortunately, but still the only sack that they have had against him in the last 4 games that Matthew Stafford has played against the Seahawks. Lawrence also had a couple other really nice pressures in this game. There was one that Stafford in the 4th quarter was able to slip away from him just enough to pick up a first down and a scramble. That's a play that Lawrence probably would love to have back. Could have been an opportunity to get a stop there as well. But Lawrence was the most disruptive defensive lineman for the Seahawks in today's game, made a few plays against the run as well. So I felt like one of the few bright spots along with Nick Eamon-Wari. I thought Tyrese Knight played pretty well coming in for a banged-up Drake Thomas in the second half. He had a key tackle at the line of scrimmage on that final decisive drive that led to the 3rd and 4 and 4th and 4 incompletions that Devin Witherspoon broke up. Meanwhile, the other side of the coin, it's tough when you're looking at an NFC Championship Game win to point out that there's players that didn't play well. But the reality is, in a game like this, there were mistakes made by both teams. There's a couple guys that I've got highlighted here. Going to start on the offensive line, and I have been a strong advocate for Anthony Bradford's improvement here down the stretch. I felt in the second half that he might have been the most improved player on offense for the Seahawks. And I know a lot of fans like to point at the plays that show up on his highlight reel where he misses a block coming across in a pulling assignment or he whiffs in pass protection. He's been really consistent, though, for the last 8 to 10 games for the Seahawks, and he hadn't given up very many sacks. He got beat several times today, though, as a pass blocker. He had a key holding penalty that was called against him as well that knocked the Seahawks out of the red zone and ended up costing them some potential points in the first quarter. Felt like this was one of his worst games that he has had really for most of this season in terms of consistency. Just too many missed blocks and too many mistakes in terms of drawing penalties in this one for Bradford. And then the other two players on this list here, Reek Woolen. I didn't talk about much about this early in the show because I wanted to dedicate this part of the show. It would have been a bigger deal, a much bigger deal if the Seahawks ended up losing this game. But late in the third quarter, when it was Seattle was up 31-20 at that point, the Rams looked like they had been stopped. There was a third down incompletion, and Woolen had an interception in his hands. Puka Nacua knocked it out of his hands at the last second. But the Rams had sent in the punt team, and Reek Woolen was on the sideline. The official that was there was warning him, was trying to nudge him to go over to his sideline, but he kept chirping at the Rams sideline and ended up getting a taunting call for a 15-yard penalty. Whether you agree or not with the way the league officiates that now, I personally think that it's ridiculous. I think they should let these guys play and talk some trash, but they've been calling it this way for a couple years now. You have to know that they are going to flag you if you keep pushing the envelope when they are warning you to go to the other sideline and stop chirping. And he didn't do it. So he got the penalty. It becomes an automatic first down. And then literally the next play, Matthew Stafford says, "Oh, you just got this huge penalty. I'm going to go attack mode against you." And Puka Nacua beats Woolen for a 34-yard touchdown. Suddenly it's a 4-point game. That felt like a complete momentum changer that sucked the air out of the building for a little while. It was the type of mistake that draws ire from fans. It draws ire from analysts and coaches. And the Seahawks had to quickly move on from their frustrations and try to uplift the player. But that mistake looked like one that could end up costing them the football game when they were forcing a punt, and instead they give up a 34-yard touchdown to Nacua. So from that metric, and then you look at the fact that Davante Adams also scored a 2-yard touchdown in the out route against Woolen, this was far from his best game, and he made some critical mistakes in the second half. And then across the field, Josh Jobe had a rough outing as well. That same drive that Davante Adams scored the 2-yard touchdown, the two plays before that, there was a 40-yard play on a crosser to Colby Parkinson, and Jobe was in position to make a play, but his jump was mistimed, and the ball ended up just feathering over the top of his outstretched hand for a 40-yard completion. And then the next play, Davante Adams roasts him on a fade route. Stafford hits him in stride for a 29-yard gain down to the 2-yard line. So in 3 plays, the Rams, they advanced 71 yards with 3 pass plays, and Josh Jobe was on the receiving end of 2 of those. He was picked on a lot in this football game, and maybe the worst game he's played as a Seahawk since they brought him in as a waiver wire claim onto the practice squad a few years ago. He's largely been a above average starting corner, if not a great starting corner, but that was not the case tonight. The Rams exploited him. He got beat several times with separation, showed off that he didn't have the best 40 time. This will be a game that he's going to want to bounce back from. And Devin Witherspoon might have been on this list too, because he gave up several big plays, but he did redeem himself with those 2 crucial pass breakups that he got on that Rams drive in the red zone late in the fourth quarter that ultimately saved the game for the Seahawks. So he redeemed himself with some of the mistakes he had earlier, giving up chunk plays. Woolen and Jobe, they had way more negative than good in this one, and the Seahawks were fortunate with all the big plays and the penalties that those two accounted for, that they were able to escape with the 4-point win. They're going to need those guys to play a lot better against New England and Drake May in Super Bowl 60. As always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. Coming up tomorrow, I'll be rejoined by Rob Rang, and the two of us will be dishing out our Monday musings, and we'll start to take a more in-depth look at Seattle's upcoming opponent for Super Bowl 60, the New England Patriots, as we draw close to the big game in Santa Clara. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and thanks for listening in. Go Hawks.